using tasers, or other non-lethal means for use of force. And so I don't understand how a school district can jump from what seems to be very little preventative measures to using guns to prevent student harm or even staff harm. And I understand that there is, I understand that we live in a different society where students do bring weapons to school, but we've lived in that society for 20 plus years. And we need to do a better job of protecting students before weapons need to be used. That's what I have to say so far.
Deanna, thank you so much for that comment. Any other comments?
Actually, I'm sorry, I do have one more comment. It does concern me that there are only, oh gosh, a couple of parents on this meeting. I don't know how many people were aware of it. I don't see very many of our Hispanic community on here. And it just does concern me that so many of our community, so many of our students are Hispanic. And we do know that people of color are disproportionately affected by gun violence, is even in schools. And I know that this use of force policy was probably created with the best of intentions, but that's not going to protect our students. And when you have 60% or 70% of your student body who doesn't look like the majority of staff on campus, it just makes me very hesitant to jump to use of force with deadly weapons. That's it.
No, Lonnie, this is Scott Hunt. I'm a parent here in the Prosser School District. Well, one of the reasons you might not see a lot of parents on here or community members is that you've scheduled a meeting in the middle of the day. So if you're expecting folks that are working, parents, to be here, that's not going to happen at a 12 o'clock meeting. So in answer to the last parent's comment about not seeing a lot of folks here, maybe the timing of the meeting is related to that. The levels of force that you've suggested and were just commented on, the continuum of use of force doesn't begin with the weapon. I don't think that that's what the policy says or is suggested by anyone that, as I read the policy, that a weapon is the first tool that the security officer or teacher or staff employee would turn to. So I'm not sure where that misconception comes from, that grabbing a gun is the first thing that is going to happen. That's not what the policy says, and that's not training for officers. That isn't training for staff, and that isn't the policy. So following the policy, the presence of the officer is the first level of use of force. Then verbal communication and working your way down until you get to the point where there is a threat of imminent harm and a weapon may need to be used. Starting with the weapon as your premise of how this policy is written, the weapon isn't the first thing that an officer goes to ever. So I think there's a misconception about what the policy says and what people are, how it's being interpreted. Our location isn't Seattle our location isn't Tacoma or Spokane, where you have the potential of having a rapid response in an urban area from an urban police department that has resources to respond quickly to a school incident. We're a rural community where we have a small police department and a remote sheriff's department that is quite a ways away. And we only have a few deputies that are designated to the district that covers where our school districts are. Our local police department can respond to an active shooter situation. But our schools, our teachers, our students, the difference in that time between a rural school like us and a school in a city where there are precincts all around them to respond makes a huge difference. In that time, those minutes that pass while we wait for other communities to come back our officers up, respond from the cities, respond from Young County, respond from Grandview or Sunnyside, Hanford, wherever, to help support the safety of our teachers and students. Those minutes matter. So having officers in the buildings that have the resources to respond to that kind of a threat is critical. And I think that's how the policy, you quoted some dates at the beginning of your talk that Prosser Police Department went away in 2013. That's not, those dates are incorrect. They just recently pulled out of providing school resource officers. Those minutes matter, and having that officer in the building will make a difference. It'll be the difference between being able to neutralize that active shooter or how many body bags the coroner is going to need when they show up to the scene later. So I don't agree that taking away the ability of our schools to protect themselves, their students, and their teachers is the right direction to go as a parent.
Hello, this is Maricela Sanchez. I had previously written to the school board and had sent in a study meta-analysis performed by the American Medical Association, looking at a wide range of shootings over the course of about 3 decades. That showed that there was no decrease in the amount of injuries or deaths with a police officer present at the school with a weapon. I object to the idea that we don't have police officers readily available in our town. Our town is very compact. The schools, with the exception of Woodstrand School, elementary school, are all within a few short blocks of each other. The police station is a couple of short blocks away. We don't have any high traffic blocking or impeding officers getting to the schools when they need to. I've lived in several larger cities, as Scott Hunt mentioned, where perhaps there's this idea that the officers are more readily available and able to get to locations more quickly. As somebody who has ridden along with, I've trained in medicine. I've ridden along with medical responders in large cities. It is not easy to get to locations quickly in large cities. Prosser has by far a much easier environment with which to get to point A to point B quite quickly. So the idea that there wouldn't be an adequate response time from a local police officer, I don't think holds water. I never received a response from the school board regarding the results of the meta-analysis, the study that showed that there wasn't an improvement in incidence of morbidity or mortality with the presence of an officer within the school district. And it is alarming to me that there has also never been a response to why we are escalating violence in schools when we know that students of color are disproportionately affected by violence and use of force within schools. And it is alarming to me that as the number of students of color within our district increases, that we have an all-white school board and all-white administration that is insisting on escalating use of force and wanting to introduce more violence into our school systems.
I want to follow up on that. My name is Elisa Riley. I'm an attorney in Prosser. I'm running for school board right now, and I'm also one of the city attorneys. So I am familiar with the past contracts the school has had with the city, and that the city bore majority of the cost, and it was the school that decided to leave that agreement. I believe in this situation, a commissioned law enforcement officer would provide the best resource and get there as quickly as possible. Because as Mr. Scott Hunt said, minutes matter. So a commissioned law enforcement officer can radio in, I have an emergency, all points, everybody get here. A school officer has to address the situation, direct traffic out of the building, dial into 911, doesn't have a direct line like a commissioned officer would have, and then get to his office and get these long arm rifles that are being stored in a safe. I toured the new high school last week, and the gun safe is visible to everybody coming into the building. You have to walk by his office. It's not even moved to the opposite side. It's against the windows, and that's there for intimidation of students. That's the most safest place to have the gun safe. Anybody with gun safe knowledge and gun knowledge and gun safety would be aware of that. I feel like this is being, they're going to say this has been on since 2013, but it's being rushed through. I'm not sure why they can't go back and say, we need a commissioned law enforcement officer here. The security officers are opening themselves up to huge personal liability. They don't have qualified immunity anymore as an officer. I think that might be a good question for the AGs that are here, which I think are great to provide a resource. The other question I would have for the AGs are concerning the new law enforcement peace officer security bill in section 1D, and I'm referring to the whole bill, E2SSB. It does refer to security officers, peace officers, and school buildings have to have the requisite training. And I don't know that under the new bill that the Prosser officers have done that. And I think the school needs to come back with that information. I've also filed a public records request for the conversations between the school district and their insurance officer with proof of the liability insurance to have private security there, which a lot of schools have gotten rid of, and to have the long arm rifles there. I've talked to friends in education, in law, in education, attorneys for the Seattle School District, baffled by this policy. And my answer back from the school, which does not like to be forthcoming with any information, doesn't like to have conversations about policies on the record, is all those conversations were by phone, and there's no record of it. They're not willing to provide a copy of the policy when asked in a public records request for that policy. And I think that needs important information that the community deserves to have and see.
Alyssa, I'm going to interrupt you here for 2 seconds.
Totally fine.
For unforeseeable reasons, this meeting is going to end in 2 minutes. I have put it, I know this is
Happens.
a lot. I have put in a new link in the chat. Please copy that link and join us at a new Zoom meeting, which will last, I think, till eternity. So we can talk about this all day. Again, the purpose of today's meeting is to gather information, note take, build an understanding and a knowledge base of what's going on, and then hopefully, our intention is hopefully in conjunction with the superintendent and the school board and community members, try to figure out if this is the best policy for our students. Again, this is about our students. So if you could please join in the new Zoom link, I would really appreciate that.